Life has a way of testing us in unexpected ways. For Sarah, a 28-year-old school teacher, the journey she was about to embark on would challenge her in ways she never imagined. What began as a quiet life would soon turn into a battle of resilience, hope, and self-discovery. Sarah loved her job as a school teacher in her small hometown. She was known for her positivity and dedication to her students. After work, Sarah would retreat to her small apartment, where her true passion lay: painting. Painting was her escape, her way of processing emotions when words weren't enough. She dreamed of opening an art studio someday, but it seemed so distant. She was content, though, living her life as it was. But then, one day, things started to change. Sarah began to notice the tremors in her hands. At first, a small shake, something she dismissed. But as time passed, the tremors worsened. Simple tasks became challenging. Writing on the chalkboard, turning the pages of a book, even holding a paintbrush became difficult. She ignored the signs at first, brushing them off as fatigue. But when the numbness in her fingers set in, she couldn't deny it anymore. Something was wrong. Yet she kept it to herself, not wanting to worry anyone, but deep down, Sarah knew she couldn't keep pretending. The symptoms continued to worsen, and Sarah finally sought medical advice. After a series of tests, she was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. The news was devastating. MS was chronic, progressive, and there was no cure. Sarah felt a heavy weight on her shoulders. How could this happen to her? Her life, her career, her passion for teaching and art, everything seemed to be slipping away. Sarah struggled to come to terms with the diagnosis. It felt like her body had betrayed her, that everything she'd worked for could be taken away in an instant. The future she had envisioned for herself seemed uncertain, like a canvas that had been splattered with paint, leaving an unrecognizable mess. In the following days, Sarah isolated herself, feeling helpless. She pushed away friends, family, and even her students. She didn't want to face them in her vulnerable state. The woman who once felt invincible now felt broken and defeated. Her emotional struggles were just as overwhelming as the physical symptoms. She felt lost in a sea of uncertainty. Her dreams of opening an art studio felt impossibly distant. She wasn't sure if she could keep teaching, let alone paint again. The pain, the fatigue, the fear, it all weighed heavily on her. The future seemed bleak, and Sarah couldn't see a way out. But deep down, somewhere within her, a flicker of hope still burned. She wasn't sure how or when, but she knew that something had to change. The days following Sarah's diagnosis were filled with fear and uncertainty. She shut herself off from everyone, unsure how to face the world with this new reality. But one evening, her mother visited, offering her unconditional support. "You've always been a fighter, Sarah," her mother said. "You'll get through this." Those words, simple yet powerful, began to shift Sarah's perspective. She realized that MS didn't have to define her. She didn't have to face it alone. She started researching her condition, seeking out support groups, and connecting with others who had faced similar struggles. Slowly, Sarah began to realize that MS, though life-changing, wasn't the end of her story. It would take time, effort, and patience. But there was hope. At first, Sarah struggled to maintain her sense of identity. Her hands trembled uncontrollably, making it nearly impossible to write or hold a paintbrush. Yet, she refused to let her condition steal her passion for painting. One day, after weeks of hesitation, she sat down and picked up a brush. The painting she created was abstract, just a few strokes on the canvas, but it was a victory. It was a reminder that she still had control over something in her life. The moment Sarah shared her work on social media, it felt like an unburdening. To her surprise, the response was overwhelming. People from all over, facing their own battles with chronic illness, shared their stories. Many of them spoke of how her journey had inspired them to keep fighting. What started as a personal struggle had become a source of strength for others. Sarah didn't realize it then, but her vulnerability had sparked something bigger. She was no longer just a teacher or an artist. She was a symbol of resilience. The positive feedback encouraged Sarah to keep going. She continued posting her artwork, telling her story, and reaching out to others who needed support. Over time, she realized that in the midst of her own recovery, she had found something even more powerful: a community. Sarah's next step was to refocus on her dream. She'd always dreamed of opening an art studio, a place where people could express themselves creatively. But the financial burden of her diagnosis seemed like an insurmountable obstacle. She wasn't sure how she could make it happen. But as Sarah researched more, she realized she wasn't alone in her struggles. She found local organizations that supported women and people living with chronic illnesses. Some offered grants and sponsorships to help start businesses. With renewed determination, Sarah applied for several programs, hoping to secure the funding she needed to bring her vision to life. As weeks passed, Sarah's life began to change in ways she never expected. Despite the challenges MS presented, she found strength in small victories. With painting, connecting with others, and her unwavering drive, Sarah began to rediscover herself. Each day brought new challenges, but Sarah refused to back down. Her hands trembled, and the pain was often overwhelming. Yet, she pushed through. She knew her life had a purpose beyond the diagnosis. Whenever she picked up her paintbrush, she was reminded of her mother's words: "You've always been a fighter." Though supported by friends and family, there were still days when doubt crept in. Fatigue and physical limitations often made it hard to keep going. But Sarah celebrated the small steps: completing a painting, teaching an art class, or receiving a kind message. All were reminders of her resilience. Sarah began redefining her dreams. The idea of opening an art studio, once distant, now felt achievable. She researched grants, spoke to others who had started businesses, and started teaching art at community centers. These classes didn't just help her financially, they connected her with others who shared her passion. Through teaching, Sarah saw how art could heal and help people find purpose amidst their struggles. She began sharing her journey online, and the response was overwhelming. People from all walks of life shared their own stories of perseverance. Sarah no longer saw herself as someone struggling with MS. She saw herself as part of a larger community of people supporting one another through life's challenges. Then came the breakthrough. Sarah received a call from a local nonprofit offering a grant to women with chronic illnesses pursuing their dreams. With the grant, Sarah was able to fund her long-awaited art studio. What once seemed impossible was now a reality. The studio's opening was a celebration of not just Sarah's vision, but of the community that had supported her along the way. It wasn't just a business. It was a place for healing, creative expression, and growth. Sarah had turned her challenges into something meaningful, not just for herself, but for others who needed a place to belong. Today, Sarah continues to run her studio, offering workshops, hosting art shows, and providing a safe space for others to express themselves. She has shown that despite the obstacles life throws our way, we can turn our struggles into opportunities for growth and inspiration. Call to action. CTA. If Sarah's story inspired you, take a moment to reflect on your own journey. What challenges are you facing, and how can you turn them into opportunities? Share your story in the comments below, and don't forget to subscribe for more empowering stories like Sarah's. If you found value in this video, share it with someone who might need a little encouragement today. Together, we can keep moving forward, no matter the obstacles. Remember, every challenge you face is a stepping stone to the person you're meant to become. Stay strong, stay determined, and keep believing in yourself, because your journey is just as powerful as the destination.